Sorry, Anish. These are side effects of child using your machine.
That's okay. Should I open the?
Yeah, yeah. Let people come in. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, hello. हेलो.
हेलो हेलो मैडम.
स्वागत है आपका मल्हार में.
So how many people?
Let's say normally about 18-20. We just finished a session just a few minutes back. Today we are like running a little late on different sessions, so I think people must be on a longer bio break or a dinner break.
Last 1 hour was a break, or you had a session?
No, I mean no. So it got extended. We should have finished at 9, but we finished at 9:30. So I thought normally for your session we should have 1 hour clearance before that,
Yeah.
but नहीं हुआ. आधा ही घंटा हुआ. So you have to now ask some difficult questions to win.
Tomorrow, your sound is a little bit on the lower side for some reason.
ऐसा क्यों होता है? Why does everybody come and say that?
Life में तो ऐसा नहीं होता तुम्हारा, but अभी ऐसा है.
Hi, Sonia. I think your mic is a problem actually. If you raise it a little bit to your face side, it will be. It was audible perfectly last time.
It was okay last time, no?
Yeah. And I noticed that it has come down slightly.
Yeah, because I can hear him very, very clearly. Yours not so much. You're like half level.
करते हैं कुछ करते हैं होगा. Hello. Better?
Better.
Nice. Good to know that you want to hear me properly. Not bad. Good change. Okay. So we are on time. Let's begin. I'm just waiting for somebody who messaged me.
Your
Angad,
studio
your
is up and
audio.
running?
Sorry?
Your studio is up and running?
No. It's a little more done up from what you saw. But no, I didn't get the equipments yet. उसके बाद से वो all that thing that I had to order अभी रह गया. I'll do it after Malhar only. It was the delivery time was all becoming tricky. आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा है. So I said I just want to stay away from that. We'll do it.
So where you're sitting right now is that soundproof
That
place?
sound studio. हाँ. So I mean nothing much, just the table after that. From what you saw. और कुछ नहीं करा. Okay. So then people will join. Angad, what's with your audio? Now it's clear. Okay, great. All right. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you had some dinner to have. So Ramo, are you on coffee? Yeah. We didn't give you enough time for dinner?
No, I'll have it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's a choice, it's good. I don't want to be punished for that.
No, absolutely not. It's fine.
Okay, Angad, you're having it now, which is why your camera is off. No, it's all right. You can keep your cameras off if that makes you comfortable. But okay, so Husain Akbar is here. I know I've
Actually, if they can keep the cameras on, it's easier for me to just connect to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just becomes talking to the screen, which is not ideal.
Correct. So yeah, so everybody just like when you can.
I mean, if you want to keep it off, then you're welcome. But I mean, if you don't mind, then switch it on.
Yeah, we prefer it on. Angad, you can keep eating. It's okay. Doesn't matter. Yeah, just keep it on. Sure. Victor, it would be really nice to see you. If you can keep your camera on, Upasna, everybody. So yeah, okay. So great. So that's Husain Akbar here. He also lives in Delhi. He is a director of photography. I don't know why you have to answer me that. Why are you not called DOC? And why are you called DOP? That's a question to be figured. But Husain has been doing camera for a very, very long time. He normally does non-fiction. Normally, yeah. Have you done any fiction?
Just short, not like a full feature. But but that's a totally different setup. So I don't want to. I mean, I'm happy doing what I do. So
yeah. So he specializes in non-fiction, and He works for a lot of production houses, lot of channels within India, South Asia, Singapore, US, Canada, everywhere, you name it. So if there is a production, a worthwhile production which is coming to India on a non-fiction thing, it's quite likely that Husain is on it, you know. And yeah, so of course, so one is the cinematography part of it, but he also is an independent producer. So what we want to hear from him today, of course, we're talking about using natural lighting effectively, but he's also somebody who goes ahead and gives the film start to finish, except probably the post production, to really big channels and production houses. And the reason I say really big, because what I want to emphasize on is the quality, you know. So they giving the film to a single person to give it the quality, you have to understand that the person also has to deliver on all quality fronts, you know, the producing, the lineup, the storytelling, the way it comes across, all of that, right? So while we're not getting into all of that details, but you might want to listen to him from that sort of an understanding of a project. But today, a focused conversation with Hussain is about using natural light effectively. I honestly could not have brought in anybody better for the Malhar community to address this. His understanding of light is so beautiful that he's actually able to render it uh, within video and within still photography as much. If you go check out his Facebook, you will see the kind of really really awesome still photography he does, which is rare, which is not what every video person can actually transition into. So that's how great his hold in. So today we have him for an hour. Let's just I think he has prepared some sort of a flow for us to go through. The way we will go about it is we'll not interrupt in between, but he, you know, when he takes in a break, you know, then we can look up the questions. So till then, please write down your questions, and at the right time, let's just bring it on so that the flow doesn't break. Is that good?
Just to add to what you said, that
Yeah.
handing over the complete project and to clients, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that this whole COVID thing has changed things quite a lot. Like earlier, you'd have people coming from outside, and you team up with them, you shoot, and then all that is supposed to happen. But now they've understood that things can be done remotely. So you are your own producer, your own director, your own DOP.
Yeah.
You might put together a small team, but basically you're responsible for everything, and they have figured out a way that you do everything here independently and send it to them. So that responsibility goes up, and that way of doing things has changed a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, earlier, pre-COVID, like on all the projects that we used to be on, there would be a part of the team that will come from abroad, and there'll be a part of team which gets assembled there. You know, which is what he's saying has drastically changed because of COVID restrictions, but it's also increased the responsibility at the end of the person who has it, because earlier it's a teamwork. Perfect. So any upfront questions that you want to, like, you have it and you want to put it up for Hussain so that he keeps it in mind, or we take it as we go? Nothing upfront? We go with the flow? All right.
Actually, feel free to interrupt if you have any questions on at that point. I'm sure you'll know as and when, because I mean, I've put together some stuff which I'm a little worried. I don't want to make it very academic. I'm reading stuff and talking about it, and just monologue type situation. I prefer it to be a little more interactive, a little more, as and when you have something to ask, you please do. So
And even if
I don't mind it.
in that case, if something gets heavy for you, like it just becomes
You
monotonous,
can ask me
just
to stop and explain also.
say that, we'll change the approach. All right. Over to you.
So, all right. So, most importantly, we're doing something about natural light at night. So, that we start off.
Bring the natural light now if you're so good at it.
So, okay. So, what is natural light? So, and rather, why natural light? So, as far as I see it, it's what light is available naturally, which is the sun. And sometimes when you shoot at night, it's the moon because it reflects the sun. So, a lot of cinema is also filmed with moonlight. So of course it can be very easy to work with. It seems like you just go out with your camera, get shots and stuff, but it's also got its own unique set of challenges. So you can get it quite wrong also if you don't have everything going for you. So it's, so it's challenging if you are not too familiar with it in some ways. Then what I like about it is, yes, it's natural, it looks real, it looks cinematic also. If it's the right kind of light and if you can use light nicely, it looks cinematic. And some locations, why I prefer to go with natural light is because they look good in natural light. I mean, even on indoors, the way the light comes in, sometimes during winter, it's, it's beautiful light coming through your window. Things look nice in natural light at that point. So yeah, and very relevant for people who film a lot outdoors and are traveling, or travel bloggers who have a lot of outdoor content. Another advantage is it's obviously quick to set up, saves time. Time is money, so on shoot. Don't need elaborate gear, which is very important. I mean, you don't have to carry like 100 lights and big crews and various things. So it's cost effective, which is again costs. That's never a bad thing to work around like that. So the challenges that I was talking about, the biggest challenge for me, for anybody actually, is that it's unpredictable. So natural light is, it's depending on season, depending on clouds. It could be raining, it could be, winter's coming, winter's great light, but it brings pollution with it. So it could be very overcast, and mornings may not have that kind of light that we keep talking about. It could be raining, it could change through the day sometimes, depending on where you are. If you're down south, Kerala, Bengal, whatever, it's a different equation again. So it's unpredictable. So it's not like, I can plan. I have a film planned and I have, my dates in place, but if I'm dependent on natural light quite a bit, I could get into trouble because, if the weather doesn't agree with me, then too bad. It's time restricted because there's always a limited window. If you want to shoot like good light, morning or evening light, usually it's a short span. Again, the tones of the light, which we'll get to that later. So that keeps changing. Like if you're early morning, the light has a different color. The afternoon light is completely different. Evening light has a different tone to it. So if I'm shooting a sequence, for example, like a scene, and I go from start in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening, and actually I'm trying to show like 1 hour of time. It's quite challenging because within that, if I'm shooting, for example, a picnic scene outside, it's very simply, I start shooting in the morning, goes into afternoon, goes into evening. It's all different kinds of light, different kinds of colors, different kinds of tone, different quality. So it's challenging because you don't have control over that beyond a point. But you try and control light as much as you can. There's tools to do it. There's ways to do it. And so pre-shoot preparation is superbly important because you can't just land up in a place if you are dependent on natural light and just say, okay, plan a big project accordingly. So you need to maybe go ahead of time, go see the place, understand what the sun is doing at certain times, and just factor in your shoot accordingly. And if there's certain precautions to be taken, work within certain timelines, work your script accordingly. So obviously those things have to be done. So pre-shoot preparation is very important. Am I going too quickly? Am I losing you?
I'm good. Anybody? Any concerns?
This is just the basic stuff.
We're good. Carry on.
So now ways to work with natural light. So we can tweak it. You can make create the right mood for it, for the shot that you want. There's various ways to sculpting with light, as they call it, and to create the look that we want, the kind of mood that we want. And the whole thing is that you have to use the sun to your advantage. And because the sun is doing various things, sometimes it's not to your advantage. Sometimes it's not the way you want it. It's not coming from the place you wanted. You want a certain background, but the sun is completely there in your shot, in your lens. So it could be quite challenging that way. So basically you have to work out you can't change those things, but you have to, using the tools that you have, you need to shape the light, you need to control the light. So now coming back to what is the best time to film. So obviously there's something called the golden hour, which I guess some of us are familiar with. Golden hour is about an hour after sunrise and an hour before sunset. So that is because the sun is quite low on the horizon. It's very soft. It's nice warm light, which we all like. and it's indirect, so it looks cinematic. If you're talking about movies and film and cinema, that is a really beautiful cinematic sort of time. But the challenge about golden hour is that it's a short window again. So you have about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Winter sometimes it's a little longer. Summer it's a bit shorter. So it works like that. So the challenge obviously is to, go, if you suddenly go into a light change, you go into suddenly afternoon light or midday light, you need to stop again because it won't match. So you try to shoot in golden hour, but you can't depend on your whole film to be set like that. So you need to work out your sequences, which ones will be in this kind of light. Sometimes indoor shots are better. Personally, I would say that outdoor shots try and do in the morning. The afternoon you try and spend more indoor stuff, and then come back in the evening and do your. That's typically how I would structure my day if I'm in control. If the director, we normally try and work it out like that. You start the day, you do all your outdoor stuff, get inside. Hard sun is too bad anyway, so and you finish your indoor stuff as much as you can, interviews, whatever it may be. Then come back out in the evening and use the evening light. So that is one just very simple workaround to try and maximize the kind of light that you have available. Then certain tools like equipment and things like that are kind of much needed for working with natural light. One is reflectors, which basically to bounce light. It could be thermocol board, it could be the foldable reflectors, it could be just white sheets. Then there's skimmers, which is basically, there's if you have direct light right on top, you open up this big skimmer, which is like a thick cloth, white cloth. It'll just filter through the light. You can have diffusion sheets, which you use if you have windows, you put them there to diffuse the light again. It could be fabric, it could be paper. Then there's cutter boards that you use, which is basically to cut light. There's ND filters for the lenses. There's gels for the windows, which are basically to. We'll get to that later. Slightly more details of all these things. But so these kind of things. Then there's something called which a lot of us use is these apps which will tell you how the sun travels. So you're standing in one place, you're looking at a scenery like a landscape or whatever it is, or you want to shoot in a road in that neighborhood. So you need to know morning the sun comes from here, it will travel, then it will go behind that building, then it will come out again, evening again, it will be behind the building. So again, I won't get evening light. So I need to get the trajectory of the sun. So it's either you just ask around and say, in the morning, ask the local people there, morning, where does the sun come out from? They might give you an approximate idea. Or you use a certain app, there's something called the Sun Seeker app, and there's various other apps which various DOPs use. So these apps are very useful to tell you just point, with your GPS, it will detect and it will tell you how the sun will travel. It helps a lot. So, yeah. And even outside, you can add artificial light, which we'll get to also. You can carry some basic lights, and you need fill sometimes. So that is another factor. So what time of the day has a huge impact on how the sun hits our subject, which obviously if it's top light, it's not very nice, not very flattering. Morning hour light makes everything look beautiful and glow and all that. So these are the things you need to be careful about. Okay, so let me go keep it back there, sorry. So I'll just break for a little bit. I think I'm going too fast also. Any things that stand out, or anybody
So
want
let's
to
also
This is Shamich. Hi, Mr. Husain. Just have one question. See, when we do a night shoot, my cameraman says like, sir, why do you do it on the night? We can do it the day, and in the post production, we can make it like a night shot. Yeah. So what do you suggest? What your opinion on this kind of approach? Like whether is it the right approach to do that, or we should go with the natural because it is more expensive and you need to fill the light in the night to get a proper.
It is done. It is done in films. It is done in cinema quite. I won't say very regularly, but it is done. But at the same time, shooting at night it's different. I mean, it's a lot more authentic, I think. And the kind of result you get out of shooting at night with the right kind of lighting and all that is, I personally, I think that is a better way to go. But there is a lot of people who would do day for night and shoot in the day and then, work around that, and the grading. And earlier the labs would do it, the like Prasad labs in Chennai.
Yeah.
So you shoot according to that, you tell them, and the labs will, process it accordingly. But yeah, it's a different way of doing it. I'll just say my preference is to shoot at night.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts, please?
Yes, so should I go ahead? Anything from this that was a little too quick, maybe, or some more input on?
Also think from it, like, of course we all understand usage of golden hour, we all understand the small window, technically we all understand, but also do you want to share about some of the experiences like Shemesh does, about when you use the natural light, and then what was your intent, and did you get it, did you not get it? Most relevant would be to discuss with Husain would be that you had an intent and you didn't get it, even though it was composed around natural lighting. uh, then he could address that specific query like Shamas did. Okay, I guess Angad, are you saying something? Okay, sure. We can move ahead, Husain. I think everybody's good.
Can I put one more question? I'm sorry about it.
Yeah, of course.
See, again, the nights. Okay. If you look at some films, generally the grading will be like a bluish kind of color for the night. Some movies, like, natural lights, let's say, for example, we have a light source, kind of a lamp or something. So then they go with like what do you call, a lamp light kind of things are the. So when you represent, or when you look for a night shot, what should be the tone, actually, the color tone? Like, is there anything like a
Yeah,
rule or
the
something like that?
bluish tends to generally, denote night. So there is that bluish tone that people use quite a lot. So actually, another thing I prefer is also like shooting at twilight, like when the sky is kind of just after sunset, when the sky is very blue and the lights are on. So that is, for me, that works really nice because it pops a lot. The sky is not completely black, and it gives you that kind of thing. And there is a little bit of light to work with. Also, there's a bit of ambient light also. And then your lights, your the lighting that you do is basically augmenting that slight blue light also. So for me, that is the best hour to. But that doesn't, again, it doesn't last too long. So maybe an hour and a half, and then that's gone. But that blue tone, obviously, somehow that it goes with the moonlight sort of tone. So people go with that for night shots.
Okay.
Well, I just had a thought. The particular film that I made for and submitted to Malhar, it's called The River. And there was this scene. Oh, by the way, hi, I'm Shuram.
Hi.
Yeah. So there was this particular scene of a dream sequence, and I wanted to, treat it differently from the other scenes of the film. So I was trying to shoot the scene in like a little overexposed, and it would be in the daylight. So but I rekeyed the location beforehand, and I saw like where the sun would be on that particular time period and everything. And then when I when on the shoot day, when I reached there, it was all cloudy and there was no sun. So I was a bit like skeptical of whether to shoot or not, but we tried a particular shot and tried to see how it looks and how it feels. uh, Interestingly, what happened was, due to the overcast, due to the clouds, there were no shadows. So what I got was the character was moving, and I could see like in the celluloid, it was there was no shadows, so it brought out the dream sequence even more, and it felt like like I shot it a little overexposed, definitely, but the absence of shadows made it even more lively and even more dreamy like. And it was something that I observed for the first time, and it was like really something for me.
That's correct. Because see, the thing is, um, having overcast skies is also a good thing in a way. But
Yeah,
only what I was trying to say earlier was that it changes. So sometimes if it stays overcast through the day, so it's dull, no doubt. But in terms of close-ups and all that, it's nice because it's like a soft sort of a diffuse light. So there's
yeah,
no hard light, there's no shadows, like you're saying. You're very correct. Basically, that's what a skimmer does. Skimmer, I mean, I'm sure you guys are familiar.
of course,
So it's
yeah.
like a giant skimmer in the sky. That's what the cloud is doing for you.
Right.
The only thing is that everything becomes a bit dull. So a little bit of shadow play and all that will not come, which is great in morning light if you don't have cloud. But overcast will help with the kind of thing you do. I mean, I'm not surprised that it worked out really nice. So, but if you're doing like big wide shots and big landscape shots and all that, okay, then it looks a little dull. And so I guess you were not doing those kind of shots so much. So
Yeah, there were white shots, but it worked for that particular scene.
mm,
Like there was the I'm just like explaining a little about the frame. There was one character who was doing a movement scene, and there was only one tree, and there was this big horizon of field, like it's a huge field, and there was only one tree in the frame, and it looked like yeah, it looked
it is the
beautiful.
classic cinematic sort of frame that is.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that will work. And if the clouds are, if it's see the उसमें भी वो रहेगा. I don't know if you had like very heavy sort of dark sort of clouds also because they have very nice texture. So it looks nice. It adds quite a bit to your shot also. But if it's just very flat, sort of a hazy sky, that is, it'll give you soft light, but it's dull. Yeah, that's my only, negative of that. But if the clouds are very monsoon sort of clouds, is what I'm trying to say. So that also looks very dramatic. It looks quite dynamic also.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so it's just what you're trying to shoot, and like it worked for you. So that's great.
right. Thank you.
Hussein, Angad is asking how to maintain continuity while shooting in natural lighting.
Huh. So, so actually, funnily, I think um, it may be a good idea to use afternoon light more also sometimes because from say just going by like a Delhi summer sort of or maybe that kind of a time from 9 o'clock to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, the light is not dramatically different. So that would be you have more hours to shoot, so you have more consistency in light. Maybe when it's really bad, then you avoid it that time. You stop, you take a little break or whatever. But it may not be great light, but if you use if you use bounce, if you use cutters, if you use all that, you can sort of create a sort of continuity in lighting, and it'll work out. But to compare it to morning and evening light, the golden hour, that is very different. It's beautiful, it's cinematic, but it'll be a bit of a mismatch for sure. So maybe that those are different sequences, and the daytime continuity is different sequences. It's basically like that.
Let's move ahead.
Okay. So now filming outdoors. So like we've already been talking about, golden hour is the ideal time to shoot if you want some shots, not the whole film, but some shot because the sun is low. It doesn't have those kind of top light sort of shadows which will go under your eye, and it'll and harsh light kind of thing, which is not very flattering. Um, and then what we've already talked about, you try and predetermine how the sun will travel, where the position of the sun will be, so you can avoid certain situations. Another thing that I like to do is when you have like absolute hard top lights, June, July sort of sun in northern India, that kind of situation. And so I would, shoot in shaded areas. and shaded areas, and then so that is soft light. You use reflectors, you use cutters. Sometimes you use a white wall, which, I mean, you're not showing that white wall, but you can shoot close to the white wall because that acts as a giant big, bounce from there. Soft light coming from there, skimmers and all that. So top light, you need to just work a lot more to make it look nice. You just have to use all your tools. You need to use your, big reflectors, always required. You need to cut light. You need to shape light when you've got top light. So a little bit harder to, like, more work to do, but it can be worked around. Another thing to do is when it's not absolute top light, it's still like, the sun is not like absolute 90 degrees, thoda angle pe. It's not like golden hour light, but it's somewhere between top light and golden hour. So what I like to do is I would keep it as a backlight. So, the sun is in front of the camera. It's behind the subject. It's sort of giving them a nice little rim over here. But the challenge is that you need to, find a shadow area to shoot into. Your background can't be white also. Your background can't be too bright. So I've got a picture just to show you that. One sec. Yeah, this one. From Harry Potter, not Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. But so obviously they've got a lot of fill light, they've got a lot of various things going on, but just to make an example out of it. So there's, so this part is, the sun is coming from the back somewhere. As you can see, all this is being highlighted. So he's catching the sun from the back, it's on his shoulder over here. It looks nice. It makes him stand out, separates him from that. But the DOP obviously has placed him in front of a darker background. If he was here, which is like very bright, so then all this will sort of, it'll be hard. I mean, it won't look nice. It won't pop at all. It won't stand out. This rim will not come. So that defeats the purpose completely. So the idea is to, find a tree, find some sort of a building, find something, and, use that to be your background somewhere. And then, this backlight from here, even if it's topish light, it's not too bad. It'll make it look like that. And in front, you're not getting direct light. You're getting indirect light. You have a reflector, somebody standing there with a reflector who is filling it in. And, you can get this kind of thing with very minimal lighting, very minimal effort. Just a few things to keep in mind. Use a darker background, use backlight, and use a bit of fill, and, you can do pretty good stuff.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
In this natural light in the daytime, is that mandatory that you should use a reflector to highlight the object or to the person or the actor?
Not really. Depends. It's a matter of taste. I mean, if you want it slightly brighter, you wouldn't want a reflector. But otherwise, often, I mean, even I don't use a reflector all the time. It's not mandatory. But often, like if you're doing, something which is a little more glamorous, there's an anchor, there's a host for a show or something like that. Then they like the face a little brighter. They want, they don't like shadows. But anyway, you're shooting with the sun behind, so shadows to nahi aayega. But they prefer a little brighter look to their face and all that. So you would give a little fill. Also, it can help you shape your direction of light. So it doesn't mean that the reflector is right in front. So what you do is you give it from a slight angle, so you have a little bit of
light and shader.
Yeah. So it looks a lot more appealing. So you can use that reflector to give not just to fill blindly. You're using it to create a little bit of mood also.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, I mean, while we're at it, I was going to bring it up later, but there's also something called negative fill. So you're giving fill from one side with a white, shiny reflector. But if you use a black, cutter board or a black flag or whatever, so you keep it close to the person's face, your subject's face. So it'll take away the light. It won't bounce from one side so much. So that's called a negative fill. So just to make it look a little more glamorous, just to shape the light a little more. I mean, hang on, I've got some images to share about that. So this is what he's doing here, this guy. So there's probably a window on this side. He's shooting the scene, but it's not absolutely flat on the face. So he's put this, and this is absorbing the light so much. It's not letting light from the rest of the room bounce onto her face, and it's absorbing that light. So it just gives that shape to the light. There's a little bit of modeling on the face. So it works. So it's not just fill like we know it. It's also negative fill. So you can have both elements to create that kind of look. Sorry, did I answer your question then?
Oh, yeah. I got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we talked about using the sun as a backlight, which is always great. Then ND filters. ND filters are great for outdoors, especially harsh light, because although it doesn't cut light selectively, it will cut the whole light from the whole frame, but it also softens up the hard edges to the the harsh light that creates in the background and all that. So ND filters are great to carry around. There's also something called a variable ND filter, which some of you might be familiar with. Basically, you snap it onto your ring, your lens, and then you just turn it around to how much ND, how much you want to cut. So it will basically, you can keep turning it till you reach the value that you like. So if you open it up one side and you close it one side, darker and brighter basically. But it's all ND, so depending on how much light you want to cut, you can use that variable ND filter. Versus you have the filters that will slide in into the matte box, but you have to carry multiple filters, of course. So variable ND is a little quicker, and if you're not on a big crew which has a lot of equipment, so that always helps. So I always carry mine. So another thing is to avoid direct sunlight on the face. If you're shooting with a subject, if there's a person or a product or something, so direct sunlight will, especially if it's not golden hour again, it will highlight a lot of the flaws in your skin. It will highlight a lot of wrinkles in your clothes and those kind of things. If it's a host, their eyes will squint, they'll get uncomfortable, and overall it's quite unflattering. There's a lot of contrast. There's a lot of various things that you don't want to deal with. So direct sunlight is a strict no-no for me as much as I can, unless the light is really soft, really from the sun is not very high. Then of course I'll use direct sunlight. Otherwise, as much as I can, I'll avoid. So I generally go with using it as a backlight. Then again, we were talking about the gray skies and the dramatic skies and all that. So sometimes what I do is, if I find that outdoors I'm shooting a big landscape, a big wide, beautiful establishing shot of someplace, I don't mind underexposing a little bit, because the sky, the light makes the sky pop a lot more. So I'm never, don't be shy to underexpose a little bit. You don't have to get the technically correct exposure for that. But those work more for like your moody sequences. If you're having a dialogue scene or something, then it won't work, because you need to see the face. And then if you cut to a close-up, which is much brighter, it won't work out. So if I see dramatic sort of skies like that, especially monsoon, or I was in Calcutta filming recently. So Calcutta has like brilliant skies in the evening, especially over the Hooghly, and so my idea is always to try and to incorporate that sort of sky into my daylight shots, show that as much in the white shot. Thoda sa underexposing makes it pop a lot more, but yeah. So any more questions before we get on to this one?
Yeah, there are two, Husain.
Sure.
So Angad is asking, can you please explain about light meters and how it works and its work in the natural lighting space?
Light meters is basically, actually, to be honest, I haven't used light meters in a long time. But
Why so?
It's just documentaries and all that. You don't really have the luxury of lighting up using light meters, and you're not using that kind of scene anyway. Right. So you use the histogram a lot more. You use the zebra. You need you use all those kind of ready tools which you see in your LCD viewfinder. It's quick, and and plus, of course, beyond a certain point in your life, you get used to understanding how the light works. So light meters is good if you want absolutely precise lighting. Of course, light meters is a great idea. For ads and for indoor stuff, of course, light meters is useful. But basically, it shows you the reflected light. There's two ways to do it. There's one is it will show you the reflected light. One is direct light. So it'll show you your f-stop reading, and then you take it from there. So you basically, if you've got one big scene, certain places are is in shadow, some certain places is getting direct light, certain places are in mixed light, whatever. So basically, you need your light meter to find out an average reading sometimes for your exposure. Anything specific about light meter? I mean, what?
He's asking more in terms of is it useful in natural lighting? Does it even?
It is useful, of course, but yeah, in terms of the kind of work that I have been doing, I mean, I've not been using it because it's not been critical to my work. But when we were in film school, when we were doing all those, those kind of productions, and if I'm working on an ad film, which that's not my genre actually, or cinema, you have to be a lot more precise in, because you have the time to set up that shot. You have the luxury of time to, get exact readings for every situation.
And you are going to be in that space for a long time. You're setting it
Yeah.
up in a controlled
Yeah.
manner.
Yeah, and you're doing like maybe one shot in 2 hours or something like that,
Yeah.
which is not the luxury that my work generally has.
Yeah.
So you find an alternate way of doing things, which is basically using your Zebra. So I mean, what camera do you use? I can maybe try and help you with.
Angad, unmute.
So I'm using 5D Mark III and 6D Mark II. That's
Okay.
Canon cameras. Yeah.
Okay. So I think they don't have a Zebra option, right? So, but 5D Mark III doesn't have a Zebra. But again, there is a exposure meter inside. So
Right.
so basically, what you need to do is you need to point in the direction that you need to read, and that's what I used to do when I was using the 5D, for example, when I had that.
Okay. Yeah, I usually do that. I mean, there's a light meter inside the camera, so I do it accordingly.
Yeah.
But I just want to know generally, like how light meters work and is it useful in natural lighting or not?
Yeah, it is obviously useful, but it's not critical. I mean, if you have the luxury of time and if you're doing projects which you have time to set up each frame very delicately and very intricately and all that, so you can use light meters for that for sure. Okay. But if you're outdoors and if you generally outdoor shoots, especially documentary shoots and especially those kind of features that I tend to work on, you don't have the luxury of carrying a light meter around because it just won't doesn't make sense.
Okay, so do you while shooting documentaries, you used to travel and all that. So do you carry any extra lights with you just to let the subject or not? Okay, you're not just depend on natural lighting, whatever light is available in that.
So because you shoot, you're not always going to shoot outdoors. You'll always have indoor situations. So even indoors, you can you use a window for your light, but then sometimes you need to augment that with additional light from one side, whatever, or you use a bounce or something. Okay. So we always carry lights. Of course we do. Okay. Even another reason we would use light outdoors is if you're shooting late evening and you know that the light is falling quickly. So what happens that if I start shooting at maybe it's winter time, it's like sunset is going to be at 5:30, 5:40. I start shooting at 4:30. I have a long, I have a scene set up in my room where some action is happening or some interview is happening, whatever. So what I want to do is I already like to light it up, imagining that it's going to go dark after an hour. So what if my if my time overshoots this sunlight time? So I can't suddenly have the frame going dark, and then suddenly the lights come on. That won't work. So what I'll do is I'd already leave the lights on and light it up and keep it on while I'm shooting in sunlight. And slowly, as the transition happens from light to the sun is going down and the sunlight is going less, so this sort of will take over. So it's not ideal, but it's not a jump, and it's not like suddenly in the shot you're looking like what happened. So.
Yeah, of course, you can do adjustment through exposures and the camera settings as well.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that I generally, if I'm shooting late in the evening and I know that my shoot might overshoot, my schedule might overshoot the sunlight hours. So half an hour before it starts going dark, I will just put the lights as if I'm lighting it up for the night and leave it on. So that transition is not so crazy. So. Right. Yeah. And later you can tweak the lights a little bit, of course, but suddenly, आप light and जला के आप एकदम से वो change नहीं होगा.
Okay. All right.
We carry lights for various reasons. I mean, outdoors and indoors we shoot with lights a lot of times, of course. So we, yeah.
Okay.
Answer that.
Especially like for interviews, you know, like if it's a conversation, you know, you can't stop the person just because the sun is going down. There's a conversation in the flow, and you can't, you know that you're going to put the conversation back to back together only in the same film, in the same flow, so you can't even like cheat it anyway that okay, this part of it happened in the day, which is what he's saying, that it's better to be prepared and light it up because the conversation is not really in one's control.
Also, sometimes if it's a very overcast day that we were talking about, and if so, I can sometimes just use my lights to boost a little from one side or thoda sa backlight area. So it's daylight, but my lights will just add to that, just make the subject look a little better, make it pop a little better. So so I will always have lights handy.
Also, would you, Hussein, for different skin tones, like if it's an internal thing, and even though you're facing a window and you're using the natural light, but would you like for a slightly darker tone, would you necessarily use the light to sort of reflect it better, or you don't really go for the skin tone differences as such?
It makes a difference, obviously, but depends on available light. If my available light is less, and if I'm, obviously I will need to light for, if somebody's wearing, a darker skin tone person will just that half stop extra. So obviously, yes.
You will. Okay, there's one question from Akash. He's saying he was on a shoot recently. The lighting department was spreading smoke around the set. They said it's for the depth, but he's not sure if that works.
That little bit of a haze, which is what you call it, sort of softens the light, it softens the film. But you can't go over with it. Like if you have a little bit of that, so it sort of makes it look a little softer, a little more glamorous, a little more cinematic. But like a lot of these, TV shows and dance shows and all that, these stage shows, they have a lot of it. But they do use it as an effect literally, and it's very obvious. But in films, you can use it subtly a little bit. So it always could, it could add to the scene. It could make it a little more, dreamy or a little more softer, a little more cinematic. So it is used quite a bit. There's, in Hollywood and stuff, they will carry that little, smoke machine sort of thing. Thoda sa chhod denge, and they'll keep filling up. But you just have to know when it's too much also. You can't keep doing it just because you think it looks nice. Anything else?
We're good for now. We can move.
So yeah, so advantages of filming. So now filming indoors with natural light, of course. Advantages is that like we talked about the midday sun, like from say 9 o'clock to 4 or 5 o'clock, it doesn't change so much. So so if you shoot during afternoon hours indoors, your light, by and large, your windows, the light that's coming through your window is fairly consistent. So you don't have to worry about suddenly the light getting brighter, darker, whatever. I mean, of course, if it's suddenly monsoon clouds come, that's a different thing we don't have control of. But so if you're shooting indoors during midday sort of light, it's quite workable actually, because you get plenty of sunshine. You get it's not direct light. You can control the window lights and all that. So that always works quite nicely. Again, if you're using a window, try and avoid direct sunlight for the reasons we've discussed. And if the source, what I mean to say is, if the light source is a door or a window, so how close you're seating your subject, how far, you're controlling your light like that, because you can't control the outside light directly. So you basically will control your exposure or the light that you want on the person by, how close or how far. Let me just take you to this. Okay. I'll get to this later. So yeah, so basically front lit is when the light is falling head on the subject, backlit is from the back, and side lit is from the side of the subject. So you can place your subject, in relation to a window inside. It could be either facing the window completely or behind the window behind you, which obviously doesn't make sense, or the window to the side, which is, nice side light coming, which always looks nicer. And always remember that wherever the light is coming from, whichever direction, there's a shadow that will come on the other side. So it'll either fall on a wall here, or it'll, there's always going to be a shadow. Even, your nose shadow will come on, whatever. So wherever you're lighting your subject from, there's going to be a shadow created from the other side, unless, you manage to do it very, very soft. Again, in terms of windows and doors, if it's a big window, the light is usually softer. If it's a small window, it's a lot sharper. It's not, it can be a little harsher. Similarly, if you look at lights that you use, the artificial lights, the big lights will be a lot softer. That's the reason why cinematic lights are always, fairly large for movies and stuff. You don't have like small spotlight this thing, because, and even if you have a spotlight, a spotlight, there'll be a big, gateway sheet of paper, which will, it's quite large, so that if it's coming from a large light source, it's a lot softer. So that's why, DOPs will prefer the light source to be, fairly large as much as possible. The way you can control your window is that, you put some, white satin cloth or just white cloth on the other side, or just to control light. Thicker cloth will be cutting it more. Softer cloth will just diffuse, filter through. There's another thing that people do is that there's something called the ND gels. Like you have ND filters, you have ND gels also. They come in rolls. And so if there's a scene where, I want to place my subject next to a window, and there's some action happening outside. There's a car that is going to come in, and, I want to see the person getting out of the car, but this person is sitting inside. But outside light is going to be very, very strong, and it will bleach out normally. So what I'll do is I'll use this ND gel, which basically will cut the light from outside. So like the ND filter will cut for the lens. You just put the gel on top of the window from the outside, and basically your exposure for outside goes up, and you can bounce a little bit extra light from inside to make up for that. So I don't know if I was clear on that one. Maybe I wasn't. So feel free to ask. About the controlling the window light with ND gels and with cloth and fabric and all that. Was that kind of clear?
Was it clear to you all? Yeah. Okay, great.
Because, like, for example, this window over here. Hang on, let me get. Okay, this is one example that I've taken. So now I want to show, like, this is not, nothing from something that I've done, is just off the net, but so this woman is sitting here, and outside is usually going to be very bright, especially in a place like our country. Outside light is generally very harsh and quite bright. So if you're shooting like this is going to be quite bleached out. You won't get much detail. If you expose for the face, outside will bleach out. If you expose for the outside, your face will go dark. So typically, that's what will happen. But what as a DOP, what one can do, it costs a bit to get those gels, but they're not really cheap. But you just paste these ND gels on the glass. Karne ki वजह से, so it becomes a lot less bright outside. So that way, I'm cutting light. Finally I can start seeing what is outside. And for this woman who's sitting here, I can, bounce a bit extra light from inside and, lift up the face a little bit, have some maybe artificial light a little bit to fill. And so I can generate a scene like this. But if I don't have this sort of a, ND gel option over here, there'll be no detail in the shot in the window. It'll all be bleached out. It'll all go kind of white. So that is one way of controlling, window light. So you can put, if you're not showing the window at all, if you're just using as a source, then you can put some white cloth. It'll diffuse the light. It'll make it even softer. So yeah. So then you have your usual, you can bounce with the reflectors, you can use cutter boards or flags for that negative light or for negative fill, which I mean. And so basically you just need to play around till you find your sweet spot, like which is the best angle for the light on the subject's face. Do you want to cut a little more over here? You want to make it darker? You want to make it more dramatic with more dark on one side, or do you want to make it very even light? If you see like new studios, they like very even light on the subject, on everything. So that is one way of lighting up. Like everything is very even soft light, but that there's no drama in that. There's no dynamic in that. So ideally you don't want that. You want the light to be showing from one side a little bit, thoda sa, falling off on the other side. So you want to create that sort of a look using your natural light, your reflectors, your negative light with cutters. So depending on your aesthetic, your personal choices, your tastes, you play around and get that look. Another, well, it's an advantage of sorts is that if you're not using artificial lights to light up the subject, if you're moving the camera around, you see your light stand and your light. Obviously, that's not right. But if you're using a window, your camera moves. If you see the window in shot, that's natural. That's that. So you can get more creative with your camera movements and all that. So you're not so restricted because you don't have all your lights around. You can show the source light and it's not a problem. Again, enhancing natural light using artificial lights, which is what we talked about. You using natural light, but sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you need to accentuate it more, augment it more with artificial light. So you carry your own lights as well. ND filters, and then when you're indoors, obviously your lensing has to be a lot more light sensitive. Wide open aperture, sort of 2.8 sort of aperture lenses. So this typically would be a setup next to the window, which we saw in that photo also. So there's a big large window here. The subject is sitting here. You bounce off with the reflector here, and the camera is visual. It's just a very standard sort of a way of placement according to your windows. So again, any questions up until now?
Yeah, there was one. Akash is asking, apart from indoor scenes, when we see a outdoor long follow-up shot in movies, do they light it in natural light only?
So what do you mean by long follow-up shot?
Akash, can you unmute and say? I think what he's talking about, this like long natural light that just comes in from a big window, like you see like a long streak of light.
Yeah, I can actually. I have just watched a movie called The Watchmen. The Birdman. Sorry, The Birdman. So the movie was all around the follow-up shot and the continuous shot. So there was a large sequence of the street around the New York street. So पूरा का पूरा जो sequence था वो उसकी market के अंदर का था. And there were continuous lights were changing, like जो वहाँ की ambience lights थी बस वही थी, और because the shot was totally on the handy and keep on following, and there was no extra cuts on the shot. So usi perspective को I was just wanted to explore, was it lit only on the ambient side जो natural light आसपास की थी, या वहाँ के लिए भी proper set किया गया होगा?
So there could be a few ways they could have done this. I mean, I haven't seen that scene, so I'll just talk about it in a general way. One would be that they might have certain, they might have certain lights used for the ambient, but if it's a very large area, then probably not. But what they also do is that there'll be a person with a mobile light, literally, who will be walking along with the actor. So the camera, the DOP is moving, the whole crew is moving with them. And there's another guy who's just using that light, holding that light out, and the light is also traveling along. You basically have to maintain your distance with the actor so that you're not suddenly darker, suddenly you're going close, whatever. So you have to choreograph that. It's a very well choreographed sort of a shot. It's not, it's not like, it has to be very planned out basically. So the guy who's holding the light will be moving along with the camera. And they have to figure out if he's going into one zone, he's going into an alley, so light can't say aega, so the guy has to quickly move, get into that other side. There might be multiple people who are doing that. There may be two guys who, one person will walk with the camera till a certain spot, and then the other person takes over. There's various ways to choreograph it. So these are complicated shots. They look very simple, but I'm pretty sure it's not key. It's all natural light. There will be a lot of these inputs which will be there. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that if I'm the DOP doing that scene, and there's an actor in front of me, and he's walking through, open markets, going through alleys, going into various different kinds of space, different lighting conditions, I want the light on him to be fairly consistent. It can't be going completely dark. Sometimes it may work according to your story, but generally it's all controlled. It's all planned. It's all crafted like that. So there will be a person who will walk with me on one side. Wo light leke chalega. He'll have a soft sort of a light attachment in his hand, and he will maintain that distance with the actor so that the light on him stays kind of consistent. Or he'll walk with the camera all through with the actor so that the baki sara light change hota rahe, jo bhi hoga, the rest of the light in the ambient light could be changing. It will go through dark spaces, brighter spaces, whatever. But he knows when he needs to go closer. He knows when he needs to go a little further back. So they need to work out in advance what the scene is going to be doing. So it's a very heavily choreographed sort of a move generally, shot. So yeah.
Not easy to do it for sure. Got it, Akash? Did that answer you?
Yeah. It got me some sense of doing it, how difficult it must have been doing it.
Right. Cool. Any other thoughts, anybody at this stage?
Any other question?
Yeah, Niruddh, go ahead.
जी मैं पूछना चाह रहा हूँ कि जैसे राइटिंग में अलग अलग स्टेप्स होते हैं किसी भी स्क्रिप्ट को बढ़िया करने के, जैसे पहले फर्स्ट ड्राफ्ट लिखा उसको, फिर सेकंड एंड फाइनल। एडिटिंग में भी फर्स्ट कट, सेकंड कट। तो सिनेमेटोग्राफी में क्या ऐसा कोई प्रोसेस है या ऑर्डर है कि आप पहले सब्जेक्ट को लेते हो या पहले आप एंगल देख लो? इसका क्या एक परफेक्ट ऑर्डर होगा? और दूसरा चीज की इस स्किल को समझने के लिए, सीखने के लिए कोई बुक रिकमेंडेशन आपका सिनेमेटोग्राफी को समझने सीखने के लिए?
बुक तो I don't know क्या बोलूं, but see, YouTube पे there's a lot of very good tutorials that you can see कि specific aspects को लेके बहुत अच्छे तरह से बताते हैं उसमें. YouTube is always a good thing, but after that, beyond a point, you have to teach yourself also. You have to take the camera out and go make your mistakes, go learn, go try out various things. सोच लो आज मैंने ये करना है, इस टाइप का ट्राई करना है, तो वो आप करके you have to hit and try, you have to keep learning, you have to keep changing things around, make your mistakes. But basically, till you do that hands-on yourself, that learning will always be academic otherwise. But YouTube pe there's everything that you need to know is pretty much available on YouTube with great people teaching, and books of course will be. I'm sure there's a lot of good books, but when you can see explained visually, then I'd suggest those tutorials are better off.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Husain, can we take one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Victor is asking, how can you use the daylight to illuminate horror movies? I put the example of Midsommar. Using daylight to illuminate horror.
I guess it's more about your, crafting more. A subject looks a little bit scarier when the light is not from here, because this is, the reason why classical painters वगैरह जैसे होते थे. So like Rembrandt and these big names, the big classical painters, the light was normally like at sort of a 30-degree angle. And वहाँ से आके आपका that's like perfect light. That is like beautiful. Somebody looks nice. But at the same
Husain,
time,
Husain, for Victor, let's just go all English. Victor is not
oh,
here. Yeah.
sorry.
No
I
problem.
didn't realize
Just wanted
that.
to insert. Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, in classical paintings and those kind of situations, your ideal lighting that makes somebody look good, look beautiful, look is basically like at about a 30-degree angle. All the painters and in those Renaissance sort of period, that their light would be that kind of thing. So to make something look bad in that sense, look scary, look a little less appealing, is a low angle sort of a lighting key. So natural light and daylight is a little bit of a challenge to make things look scary in that sense. You can create that sort of a half lit sort of a face lighting and those kind of effects which make it look a lot more dramatic, a little scarier, slightly low angle lights. I guess those kind of things you need to play with. I mean, because natural light is very ambient sort of a thing. It's difficult to craft it to make it work for a horror film, which is why I guess a lot of horror films have night scenes. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's my best answer to that, but I would basically look at it as a direction of light sort of a solution to that. So it can't be soft light, it can't be it can't be frontal light so much, it can't be glamorous light. It has to be unflattering sort of slightly low angle, half lit sort of light comes in from one direction quite a bit. Those things make the person look a little more dramatic, slightly eerie. I guess that will work for that.
Yeah, Angad is adding, I feel other elements like music, expression can give a feel of horror.
Yeah,
the makeup and
yeah.
makeup specifically, like you can just add kind of makeup which highlights the tones that you want to highlight.
And of course, I mean, if you're talking about you won't use a brightly lit, beautiful day for a horror scene. You look for more gloomy sort of backdrops, maybe sort of a what do you call post twilight sort of scenes, which is daylight but not quite daylight. It's after the sun has set, that kind of light. So yeah.
I hope that answers for you, Victor. Do you have any leading question to that? Okay, great. He got it.
These we did. I'm mostly done. I mean, so this is something called which is also known as a blue hour, which is basically once the sun has set, there's still some light in the sky, which it's not, sun has gone under the horizon and it's getting a little bit dark, but not dark. So the sky sort of pops nice and beautiful blue. I really like to shoot at that time wherever possible. Shooting the city at that time, is always makes it look great. So this is just an example of the same scene, more or less, in the space of about 1.5 hour difference. So this was maybe about 5-6 o'clock that I clicked this, and these are still, of course, but just to show what the light can do. And this, as soon as sun has gone down, and these lights come on, and so shooting again, you have a very small window at this time. So a lot of night scenes can also happen at this time because it's night technically, but there is enough to sort of have some fill light. Street lights are on, everything. So it's all the elements of night, but it's still, the daylight still remains. So it looks beautiful. It looks, but the challenge is that it's only going to last you maybe half an hour or whatever. So that's the problem. So yeah, I guess I'm done with the PPT, but happy to take more questions or anything else to discuss.
Thank you.
So can you if you have seen this film Baraka, It's a very it's a documentary film, and it's it's not a question. It's just to commend everyone to watch that film. That was the first documentary film shot on film camera. So they have used natural lighting. They have used everything like.
What is it called?
Baraka.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, so that film was shot, directed by Ron Frick. So you watch that film.
Sure.
I'm just recommending and suggesting my point of view.
Okay, sure. No. Good idea. On the point, on the topic of natural lighting, sure, we'll all see. Okay.
No, it is one of the cult sort of films.
Any questions? Any afterthoughts? Any experiences? Anything you want to clarify?
Any typical problems you face? I mean, think about that. I mean, happy to answer.
Also think in terms of, as independent filmmakers, also think in terms of when you don't have a cinematographer with you. You know, there are things that we have to catch some moments. You know, sometimes some things happen and you may not have, unless you are the cinematographer always, but if you don't have your cinematographer, well, what are the things that you personally struggle with? Your cinematographer might be able to do it, but you struggle with maybe that kind of a clarity, so that you're not caught in that moment.
Anything you may have filmed yourself, or even with the camera cinematographer, and something didn't work out, or there was some something that there was a mistake or a fault or something, and you couldn't figure out why it happened like that. So any of those situations, if you can think of, I mean, I can try and shed some light.
Akash is saying, I always face issue trying to set the lights, but that's indoor light. I have zero light experience. I rarely have any cinematographer with me. Any suggestion for me how to light up the scene?
But the basic concept remains the same. So you have a key light, you have a backlight, and you have a fill light. So you may just use one light, you may use three lights. Typically, you have something called a 3-point lighting setup, which is one light will be like, I have a light coming from here. That is my key light. There'll be a light opposite of that, somewhere outside of the shot, outside of the frame. There'll be a backlight, just lighting me up like that, giving light to my shoulders. Piche se, I'm bald, but if it was Sonia in shot, then her hair will have nice glamorous highlights. So that is your backlight. And fill light, if I think this is creating too much of dark space here, then I'll have a fill light, or I'll have a reflector or something on this side to bounce this light onto my face. So that's basically what lighting is. That's what basically 3-point lighting, whether you're using a window and reflectors or a artificial light and reflectors, light source is going to be doing the same kind of things.
Hi, Sarah. Can you unmute yourself? You joined in late, but I know I called for you. I really wanted you to attend this, since you do a lot of stuff by yourself. I am not sure how much of what Husain shared. Did you hear? Did you hear a lot of what he said?
Hi, everyone.
How are you today?
Today I went to the theater. It's about Caligula, Albert Camus, Caligula.
Husain knows it.
Yeah, the movie, yeah.
No movie, theater.
Theater, okay.
Theater.
Right.
Yes, I went to the theater. Right now, I come here and I enjoy it. And I understand about the lighting, and I enjoy it, and I understand all of it. I understand.
Did you manage to catch some of it, or did you just join? I'm sorry, I didn't.
She joined. I think she joined about halfway through, not through the entire thing, but she joined. No, because Husain, the reason I called Sarah in, I messaged her, was because she lives in Iran, and obviously there is a lot of restriction around what one can film, what can't film. So she lot of times she operates independently, you know. So which is why I really wanted, Sarah, that's why I wanted you to, you know, hear Hussein, because he works as an independent cinematographer and a producer, and since you also do a lot of your work just by yourself alone, so that is why I thought that, you know, this whole masterclass on using natural light, you know, getting the emotions out, getting the right thing out would be helpful for you. So do you have any questions when you try and shoot your film? Do you have any questions to do with camera or with light that he can help with?
No, because some of my I had a question, but some person asked it and I get my answer. Yes, yes, and it's okay for me.
Perfect.
I enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have anything that you can think of, I mean, I'm happy to, you know, see if I can shed some light on that.
Yeah. Just think, I mean, see, what we are asking and insisting you all is that think of it when you are independently trying to do things. When you have experts and when you have crews, of course, everybody's looking at their expertise. But as independent filmmakers, at least, I mean, I have experienced that a lot. There are a lot of things that happen when nobody's with me, you know, and that story is important that time to capture it, like if I can, right? And then if I don't understand the sound, then there's a challenge. If I don't understand cinematography, lighting, there is something that you lose out on, right? So what that's what Hussein and I are offering and insisting, to think of those situations where you could have been, and you might have had to call somebody to do it, or you know, something didn't work out, or like the other questions that have come, that your DOP tells you to do something which you say okay, but you don't really know and agree with it or understand with it. So maybe use another 5 minutes, just think about any of those situations. Hi Upasna.
Hi, Sonia.
Hi. Thinking hard?
Yeah, the session was quite nice. I can't think of any questions right now. It was quite interesting.
Great. Yes, Ramo.
Yes, I would actually want to have a feedback on one of the scenes from my film, because it's a long shot, and it's also the whole scene has mainly dependent on natural lighting. So can I share my screen and show
Yeah,
it
of course, please.
if it's possible?
Okay, just hold on for 1 second. There's a
Yeah,
quick question from Arun. Then we can do the screen sharing, because then it can
perfect,
get a little longer. Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
Arun, do you want to unmute yourself and ask it yourself, or should I? Okay, I'm assuming you can't do audio. So Hussein, Arun is asking, after director and DOP finalizes the color palettes, how do they communicate this with the art director? What inputs does the art director give regarding the color palettes? So it's you, the director, then connecting with the art director, and everybody being on one sync about the color palettes.
That's more of, I mean, that's typically a fiction scenario, of course. I mean, in documentaries, they don't really, to be honest, have the luxury of working with art directors. But I mean, again, there's a lot of pre-production work that goes on. You know, you need to wait for the art director to, you know, give you the options. And sorry, repeat the question again for me.
Okay, he's saying, after director and DOP have finalized the color palette, how do they communicate this with the art director? So I think where we can think from is, how does a DOP articulate color palettes, and then how does he communicate that to the art director, wherein probably the lingos and the jargons are different for a DOP and for an art director. And he's saying, what inputs does the art director give regarding the color palette?
Mostly about locations and the kind of props and the kind of ways you create your color palette through just locations,
Elements.
props and elements. Yeah, that's basically where it comes to. Like, there's a friend of mine who's an art director who has worked on some Wes Anderson films, for example, and it's a lot of the props and the backgrounds, the locations, all that goes with the kind of colors and the color tones and stuff. So I mean, it has to be a two-way thing. I think the art director, you can't just first decide and tell the person. It has to be
together.
Together.
So as a DOP, just to address this a little deeper, Husain, as a DOP, when the director is, let's say, saying that we have to do a mood shot, we have to create a mood shot here, right? Now the mood shot is a reference, so you will have a visualization of what a mood shot could look like, which will include a color palette, a color, right? Now that thing that you have visualized, that okay, in this scenario a mood shot could look like this kind of a color, this kind of a feel, how would you communicate that to the art director? Because just saying that okay, I want to create a mood shot is as abstract as anything can be. So if you would, I know you don't do work with art directors, but just from your understanding, what would you tell them?
Mostly I think based on locations. I mean, the kind of and creating just props and backdrops and stuff. I think basically that's
Arun, does it help? Or you want to rephrase your question in another way? But Husain largely does documentaries, non-fiction, so outdoors and indoors. But really don't, I mean, non-fiction people don't really have so much of luxury of equipment and many people. So it's like you have to tell the story mostly by basic cameras, basic lightings, and in that you move around.
So you have to work with what's available and what's reality. So you have the luxury of going sometimes for a recce to see how things are. You might change things around a little bit, but largely, you have to show things as they are in what we do. It's not so much to, set up things as much as possible.
And that's the whole idea. I mean, that's in all its honesty, that's what a documentary or a non-fiction is, to show it the way it is. So one can only highlight it a little bit, just accessorize it probably a little, or between the two options that you have, you choose one that looks better cinematically, but that's about it. You can't really do so many things.
Well, some places, like you go to a village where they're working on certain craftspeople and all that, so you will work your shot quite a bit. I mean, you will try and use a lot of the fabric, a lot of stuff in the background. You do try and create somewhat, but you still have to be true to what the place is. You can't. I mean, what we work with is between the director and myself and our ADs and stuff. So we will basically see what's available, what is what the characters do, what the characters have available, and try and make the best of whether it's their houses or their workplaces. You work within what you have. So that is basically what documentaries end up being.
But what Husain does really well, not directly related to the topic, is like in the documentary space itself, but of course we have to take a lot of interviews, lot of conversations, but just playing with the natural light, he does very good work with interview framings. Like, I mean, it's one thing because the person who's talking, you're going to listen to that interview for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So the aesthetics also matter. Of course the content matters, that the person is going to talk. So he does, I don't know, you would have some handy shots. You wouldn't have taken out stills as such, no?
Not stills, but
just the composition, that okay, it's natural light and the focus is going to be on the person's content, but how do we still set up a aesthetic for this person that you feel like looking at him or her, for listening to that. So that I feel is also, a lot of films is super flat. Like, they just don't give value to the aesthetics in an interview scene. A lot of times I just feel so, which is something that Husain does brilliantly.
Let me see if I have anything handy.
So why don't you just take it out, and by the time I think Suramo's film is there, can you share that till then?
Yeah, of course.
Ha, Suramo, do you want to share screen?
Yeah, so this is the scene I would play. Yeah, so this is it. So here what I felt was like, of course, the from the window I used that natural light, and but it was overexposed, and I did not have the money to use anti filters. Um, so like, yeah, I would like to get a feedback for this particular scene.
Did you use any lights at all in this? Yeah, this is purely.
Yes, yes, of course. I reflected light, and I used a LED from like when she was crossing from the room to the kitchen space. So there, the crossing part had a light from the back, so that when the other character who was naked, when she would come, she would have a little light on her. So I used a LED of a reflector, And I also to lit up the hall space when she was going out the hall space, I used a practical which was a bulb, which was also visible, but I kept it because I felt like that hall was did not have any windows, so perhaps that character always puts on the light, keeps on the light on. So I felt that that would make sense perhaps, but overall I felt like there were the exposure, the overexposed uh, elements could have been even
I
the
don't think
jar.
there was the major problem for me was just that water dispenser.
Yeah,
But otherwise, the main room was not a problem as such. I mean, I think the lighting was fine. It was basically the moment she enters the kitchen, it looks like there's a giant lamp or something.
yeah,
So because it's kept right in front of the window, so, and it's water, it's going to catch a lot of light. It's plastic, it will reflect light. So the
exactly.
placement is a bit could have been a bit different. Secondly, the windows basically you could have used a skimmer of some sort. Basically, put a hanger sheet behind on the outside. I don't know what floor it was on. Maybe it was not possible.
No, it wasn't possible. It was a third floor. So
Okay. But ideally, if you can put a sheet on that side and you avoid some of the window, it could have worked also. But yeah, the placement of the water dispenser was a bit problematic because it was very distracting, that part. Otherwise, the other room was fine. I think the walkthroughs were fine. That exit opening door, all that part was absolutely. I mean, nothing jarred over there. Just the dispenser looked like there was actually a lamp kept there for something.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
was.
so that was a bit challenging. Maybe you could have. I don't know if the dispenser could have been moved away from the light a little bit and not right in front of the window. That I don't know if that was an option with the space.
Yeah, there was a little problem with the space as well because it was all like one shot thing. So yeah,
Or maybe you keep the dispenser on the other side if at all. I don't know, but because right in front of the window, and if it was a dark, if it had some sort of a dark cover or if it wasn't so bright, it would still work. But that's the only thing I had that sort of stood out for me as an issue.
thank you. Yeah.
Works for you? Works for you, Suromo? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Great. Any other thoughts? Anything coming up from your firms? Anirudh? कुछ ध्यान आ रहा है?
नहीं, वो इन्होंने बताया कि डे लाइट में कैसे शूट करना है, किन चीजों का ध्यान रखना, तो
हाँ.
बस ठीक है.
Done. ठीक है. All right. So I guess we are good. Now we have to try out. I'm sure you all do that, but just with little more confidence that it's been given as with experience. So just go out and experiment with these things. I think what stood out for me from a presentation point of view was Lord of Rings shot, and Husain, what you explained about positioning the character, in front of the tree, so that's a very simple hack, but just to know when we are in a location, there are a lot of things, but just positioning the character with the contrast, keeping a contrast.
And it's a very common issue because in a country like India or tropical sort of countries, summer is long, light is harsh. Midday sun is beating down half the day, most of the day.
Yeah.
So how do you use outside light without compromising picture quality? Is basically use it as a backlight, shoot into the shadow, and use a fill light or a reflector, or whatever, and that will solve for most of the situations. Of course, there's sometimes when it's absolutely on top, and that's avoidable. Go have your lunch at that time, but apart from that, I think you can live with that and make it work.
Yeah, I mean that's more from an Indian kind of lighting, but of course, like in Europe, we have a much softer light.
Yeah, Europe and further away from equator, north and south, light is obviously going to be better. Of course, your winters are much darker, so there's no natural light. a lot of the time.
But summers, when you have a window, you have a larger window.
Yeah.
And of course,
So
and
your golden hour also is not just a golden hour; it's a golden 3 hours sometimes.
yeah, golden 3 hours.
So that really helps a lot. But
yeah, like I mean, the continuity issues that we're talking about, they're less in terms of light because it's going to be soft for a long period of time. So you get to do your shots again and again. But again, we are talking about more non-fiction here, where anyways probably we don't get so much time to do it again. That moment is only like a little bit of a time, or it's best. So we have to work with that. So yeah, so this was all about natural lighting effectively. All right, good. Thank you, Husain. Thank you very much.
Good night, guys. I hope some of it made sense and some of it was helpful.
Thank you, Husain.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. So if any of them have questions, I'll communicate it to you. So we'll reach out.
Thank
and
you
Husain,
very much.
you have to, whenever you find time, you have the access to Malhar. So please watch their films.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. And leave your comments and your feedback, especially from camera point of view and lighting point of view. And so they can share it with their respective DOPs and it can get better the next time.
Perfect.
Yeah. So he's going to do that. It's on camera. It's recorded. All right. All right.
Good night.
Okay, guys. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye, Husain.